So Rishi Sunak is back, and I'm sure many of you are hoping he has brought his money printer with him because we're about to go into a recession like no other. Or at least that's what the experts say, as we are literally seeing the cost of everything go up along with the shrinking of our disposable income. Now inflation has reached a 40-year high and mortgage rates are looking meh. Meh of course being a technical term for the word pants, and house prices are still out of reach for many. So it's fair to say that there is little optimism in the atmosphere right now, and it's not just in the UK that things are looking bad. Now I previously did a shorts on the China's economy, speaking about their 0C21 policies and more specifically the real estate industry, which isn't alone in this crisis. There are signs of a global housing market crisis that could even be worse than what we saw in 2008. Countries like Canada, Australia and Sweden, where in some of those places we have seen prices fall by 8 months consecutively, are struggling too. So for me, it's just a matter of time until things potentially catch on here. Now, going back to the good old Rishi, I've been hearing some very optimistic words saying that his links with other nations and him now being in power could instill some confidence. Now, confidence is a good thing. Confidence could see the pound bounce back in the future, which as many of you know has gone in the wrong direction in recent weeks. So with the shitstorm we are currently in, and as we look ahead into a potential deep recession on the cards, inflation needs to be controlled. And we know that inflation is usually controlled by increasing interest rates to slow down consumer spending. But with little incentive to save money right now, due to poor savings and major assets like the property market seemingly showing local top prices, i.e. at least for this cycle, it puts the nation in a strange spot. And the worst thing about it is, with high energy prices, high food prices, inflation, mortgage rates not looking appealing, and low disposable income and support, is that I just don't believe this guy solves the issue. I do believe his priorities will serve the rich, despite pondering to those who don't fall in that bracket right now with meaningless words and very little action that will in fact hurt us in the future, such as the money printing machine that many people naively cheered about during his last stint, not realizing that we, ourselves, will be picking up the tab in the near future. So brace yourselves, my friends, and don't say I didn't warn you. Now, one thing that I think is important to look at is the oil situation, especially when we look across at major countries and how it affects them. So let's look at the USA, who has recently been deploying its strategic petroleum reserve using 280 million barrels of their reserve capacity from the recorded 714 million. And this has obviously reduced their reserve to record low levels, but it has helped the price of gasoline and had some impact on the overall inflation of their country. Now their stance at the minute seems that they're waiting for prices to drop so they can then refill that reserve. But if China decides to refill their stock as they're going through their own issues, then it could backfire on the USA. And we all know that Russia has become China's top oil supplier despite the sanctions in Ukraine. And when we look a little closer to home, where the UK is primed for a deep recession, or more pain as I often say, we need to be mindful of what's going on in the world, as it could definitely have a knock-on effect for us. We have seen the private sector economy shrink sharply this month. We are seeing supply chain issues hitting UK manufacturers, forcing them to cut production. The PMI forecast has also come in lower than it had forecasted, and companies have reportedly shown they are hiring at the slowest rate in the last 20 months. So what can we do? Or should I say what can be done? Because let's face it, nothing any of us suggest is going to make a difference, as we are just mere puppets of this ongoing circus that we are currently having to watch. Could we reduce inflation without resorting to even higher interest rates, which, let's face it, make the idea of buying a house or taking a mortgage less appealing than ever? They affect those who will refinance, they will affect landlords, they will also affect tenants as well. And it just seems like a vicious cycle where nobody's really going to win. So what could be done? Well, of course, there's the option of raising taxes, right? Now, this falls massively out of my skill set, so correct me if I'm wrong here, my friends. But if more money is taken out of people's pocket via tax, then it leaves people with less money to spend, which in turn would reduce demand. Now, do I want this to happen? Do I want people to have less disposable income? Of course not. But inflation needs to be brought down. Plus, the taxes could pay for public services directly rather than relying on external debt. So it could offer a better alternative to just hiking rates to crazy numbers. Now, of course, many of you also have the issue of pondering over the idea of mortgage interest rates. And the most common question I often get asked is around, should you wait or take on that ERC? ERC being the early repayment charge. Now, personally, that's not for me to advise on. It's such a loaded question. But if I was to tell you that I just paid £15,000 for an ERC in August to lock in the rates, as I envisaged this happening around 6 months ago, it may show you where my head's at. Sometimes we just have to pay a little now to potentially save a lot more in the future. Now there's also the option of variable rates too, but that personally doesn't sit well with me. I think times are too volatile right now, so it's not something that I would necessarily entertain. However, one thing that we can't skip past is opportunities. Yes, they exist in the midst of all this, and the opportunities rarely seem like opportunities when they initially present themselves. And it's always hindsight that has you kicking yourself thinking, should have, could have, and would have. Now, if you are cash rich, deals will start becoming a lot more apparent right now, as those who can't handle rental coverage or have poor cash flow due to over leveraging will likely be looking to exit the market. Those thinking this is the top and more pain is on the cards will also be following suit too. So if you aren't at the mercy of your current rate rises, you could bag yourself a steal, which could reap many rewards in the future, if of course you're able to hold on. So friends, stay vigilant, think long term, and remember this quote the next time you feel a little anxious.